I might have to just my own place.
Yeah, no, I'm releasing my own channel because, yeah, reasons.
So then we're going to make a story about how Rent a jerk and abandoned me at the panel.
I'll have you know, I've already dodged Eliza for that, and
That's on.
He apparently smells very lovely.
It smells delicious.
One of our booth mates came out and said, Alan Tweed smells amazing. And I'm like, logging that away.
Your hands was like Alan Tweed.
Yes.
What's really sad, there's a part of me that was like, no.
Hello, Alan. I was like, is he creeped out by that?
At all.
I'm just curious, would he be cool with that? Probably not.
That's the other thing I heard. That Carl Urban was like, if they could just distill his essence down to pint Carl alone, it would like ruin the world or something.
Get us Skeksis. They're apparently all working with draining essence. So there you go.
It's so weird, the things that I didn't hear. I used to actually, a few years ago, I used to work on staff here. They put me with different media people at my law school. It was always weird telling people about, so Jewel State's kind of like this, and really like, no, she's actually kind of cool and kind of confused about the whole gay thing. But it was cool, we had a cool conversation. It's always like interesting afterwards. Like, Jamie Bamber was the first one I worked with from Battlestar Galactica. Turns out it was really tiny. And he came off the plane, and I was there waiting for him, and he comes out with kind of this nice, weird, kind of a pinwheel-colored Humphrey hat. And he looked really tiny. I was just like, is that Apollo? I can't quite tell. He walks up, oh, hello, you must be my ride. I'm like, now it makes sense. Okay, cool. Like, I hadn't realized.
You were bigger on TV.
My TV's tiny. Relatively speaking, you were tremendous. Okay, so they've closed the hatch, so you're all locked in, and now we can tell you. What? Are you serious? I just started speaking.
I'm good.
I want to know what that spell was. So now that you're all here, we can tell you that the folder was a bit of a lie. We're not doing the folder's a lie. The cake is a lie. I finally get that one. My daughter played that song for me. I was like, this is adorable. Is she talking about killing people? It's from Portal. I'm like, oh, that's right. Mom played that game. I did not know. So I played it. This is such an awesome game. The computer is crazy. I love it. I did. And what's his name? Stephen. There's the voice for the first guy. Wheatley. What's his name? Steve Merchant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. Whatever you do, don't take it off. It's very heavy. Don't break. Oh, okay. I just like the whole thing. I'm like, I don't want to play anything else but just wander around this dungeon of doom with this guy for the rest of the game.
Not to be a downer here, Ben, but I'm gonna get you back on track.
Oh, sorry. Yes, back on the track. Don't leave the track ever. They'll kill you. Okay, so exactly. So what we had in the program was a bit of a teaser. We're actually not going to do rad libs today. We're going to create a story.
Isn't that basically what it said?
Nope. So we're going to make up a story. We're actually going to make up a story. One of the things we've been doing in some of the cons is that we propose a theme for one of our anthologies, and with a clever group of unwilling or willing volunteers, we invent a story which later on gets submitted to one of our anthologies. The last time we did this was at Geek Girl Con last year. We did a story, we opened up, our theme for that book was about the end of the world, called And I Feel Fine. Okay, yes. What's up, I check the pulse of my audience, like, are you guys getting these old?
You're too old!
Yes. I know, I know.
Back on track, Ben.
Sorry. So, the next anthology that we're doing is called And Here There Be Monsters. See, I love that. So what we're going to do is talk about what, we're going to do more than talk about it. We're going to walk through the creation of a short story. Establishing scene, establishing characters, plot, motivation, overall story arc, And then one of us, whoever wins or loses the rock, paper,
I think we
scissors.
should decide once we know what it is, if it's the winner or the loser.
Winner gets to choose who writes the story. We'll end up doing that as a story, which will then be completed and submitted to our next anthology. And don't worry, we will give the entire Emerald City Comic Con credit for it. If you don't believe me, the very first story in our And I Feel Fine is called God's Brownies. We had a weird crowd.
Was it also a Sunday?
What?
Was it also a Sunday?
It was the last.
I feel like that's just like the worst and best thing to do ever.
It's a little unhinged. It was about a cult preparing for the end of the world and turning the brownie distribution into their sacrament. Yeah. We were about 10 minutes into that whole process, and the people on the panel looked at me and they're like, "Yeah, Ren, you're totally writing this one."
We're going down, we're going down.
And it just got worse from that point on. There were kids in the back row going, "Make them all serial killers." What?
You know how you treat your children, just so you know. You raise them weird.
Services.
But awesome.
Okay, so again, with the theme being monsters, we're going to start with the basics. Picking a theme is very, very general. So of course, the setting can be anything. It can be any genre you'd like it to be, and still tie back to that theme of monsters. It could be romance. It could be historical fiction. It could be a western. Western would be kind of cool.
It could be a western in space.
I'd like, just for the record, I'd like for the record, let's not have this one be a 1960s drug farm. It's been done. So anywhere else, so Kiri's going to be taking some notes while we go through this, and we're going to pick either the first or most amusing answer that we get, and we'll talk about it, then we'll move on. So for right now, let's focus on the genre, bearing in mind this is going to be a monster story. So who wants to throw up a hand?
I would just throw up.
I say let's go genre of sci-fi. Plenty of monsters.
Sci-fi?
Plenty of monsters there.
Okay, we'll start with sci-fi. Let's
Pirate Adventure.
Ooh.
Pirate Adventure.
Oh,
In the style of one of those Asian epic movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Ooh.
So, not much dialogue, but we're going to describe a lot of flipping around in the air.
Zero G, that would be totally awesome.
I watched that movie. There were no tigers or dragons.
Yeah.
I get they're all crouching and hidden, but come on.
There was a dragon on a sword.
Ah! You were watching closer than I was. If we were doing Titus Andronicus, that would be very helpful.
I was worried about cooking shows just because I read all of the George R.R. Martin books. Every time there's a big meal, people die. Which would work with a monster.
Which weirdly has made me always hungry at funerals. I love that there was a delay, like a lot, or laugh, I'm rolling laugh.
There's that 5 second, is this too soon? Oh, I'm laughing. Okay, so
Alright, so what did we decide on?
We're going to add a cooking element.
Was also the Chinese thing?
Yes, Chinese cooking.
Cooking Chinese!
True.
Reincarnation.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. We've got sci-fi. We've got Chinese. We've got cooking.
Giant knockoff Buddha.
Well, we're getting into the detail on setting. Let's shift from that. At this point, we're looking at probably a sci-fi.
Sci-fi
setting.
pirate adventure, done in the style of the Chinese martial arts films that are also very arty, with some reincarnation and cooking shows.
On a gas giant planet.
Okay, so let's get into the setting now. Now that we kind of have the overall genre, some possible things. Sci-fi is a pretty broad thing, but setting really does establish where the story begins, quite literally. So let's think about where shall we set this entire sci-fi cooking monster?
Also when?
Also when?
Because
Inside a molecule of water.
Hey!
Nothing is impossible.
have a degree that'll tell you otherwise.
Challenging.
Oh yeah? Well, I've read Dr. Seuss. Coincidentally, once I found out he had nothing to do with the medical profession, I lost interest of the medical profession.
Just write down some molecule that may come into play later on.
I'll just write water molecule, question mark. monster of the mind.
That would totally change my setting.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a literal interpretation. It could be we're going to get into the characters in a second. Right now we're just painting the backdrop. So, we had a hand back here.
You should set it in a brothel kitchen.
Brothel?
Okay, hang on. Who's under 18 here? Keep that in mind.
We have a few people who cannot legally order alcohol.
I haven't cursed yet.
You have not.
But you have
Yet.
enough science.
I said yeah.
You gotta slow it
Give you time.
We'll put a pin in that one. Last time was a drug from. I'm trying not to localize myself into a.
Do you want me to just forget about brothel
like,
kitchen?
oh,
You
that's
can have that
guy writes
discussion with your
about
kids
drugs
later.
and sex. My next book, rock and roll. Then I just have the whole trifecta going.
So are we denying brothel kitchen?
We're putting a pin in it because we can't say no to that. In the back.
For no
1920
reason.
Chicago.
1920s Chicago. 1920s brothel.
In Chicago.
Brothel kitchen. Brothel kitchen.
Listen to you, sir. You don't know nothing. Simoleons.
1920s is. I'm liking the 1920s
Sci-fi. Pirate adventure.
Oh, yeah, let me work
Let it
my
cook.
brain through this.
New Chicago on another planet.
1920s would.
Chicago is a surprisingly common name.
Steampunk. It would be edging into diesel punk at that
I love
point,
diesel.
which I've always wanted to do. We may fight for this one.
Okay.
Okay, so let me see. It's gonna be 1920s. Has to be retro sci-fi. So it'd be more along the lines of a diesel punk, which is nice. Possibly brothels involved.
I'll write more question marks.
We're gonna look at that later on and go.
And then I'll put one like
Question
here
marks
so
for
it kind of looks like some ladies.
Or you could call it the bordello.
Hey! The first one of the weekend. At least in the past.
Now it's a party. There is Kiri snorting. It's now a party. Let's go back here.
Student-teacher conference.
Oh.
That might conflict a bit with the brothel. Let's not be too hasty, Ray.
It's a brothel college.
I think I saw a hentai like that once.
So we have the madam and the new mistress.
I love how seriously
Wait, that's
you're like,
right. We've gone all the way over here, and we still have to talk about pirates.
diesel punk firefly.
Okay, let's try not to go completely Joss Whedon here. I know we love.
Hang on, I'm having a moment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's nice, okay.
Okay.
Student teacher.
If you want to go with the diesel punk aesthetic, it could be in the engine room of a train, and they could be train pirates.
Oh.
We like the Back to the Future train.
Oh,
Not to be confused with trained pirates.
She did toss the brothel thing in. I had like 25 different jokes I cannot make right now. Yeah, don't ask. Don't. Leave them there. They simmer and fester and be delicious. Okay, let me go one more over here, then we'll move on to the next segment.
Israel on the moon.
Okay.
But we've also got Chicago. Do we use all of these? Or are we just putting pins in all of these?
We're finding out the common thread.
All right.
This is basically a brainstorming session.
I
We're
like
finding
it.
that
Brain
thread.
vomit is my favorite thing.
Ew.
I don't know, mine usually comes out.
Ew.
Holy cow. Girl.
On the moon. On the moon. Don't forget on the moon.
On the moon.
Trains on the moon. I'm not trained.
A train from Earth to the moon. They're gonna put a Pizza Hut up there apparently. You gotta get this something.
Monorail.
Diesel does have a problem with being in space, the whole combustion thing, but so does breathing. So it's
Breathing has a problem being in space.
as it turns out. Okay, so
If you
that's,
breathe oxygen.
so now we have to talk about our main character. Now we know that we've already established this is going to be something of a monster story, but who is going to have to deal, find, run away from, kill, or be eaten by the monster.
Or who is the monster?
Michael Bay.
We would get sued for that, but that's really tempting.
We're going 1920s, he has not been born yet.
The motorcycle man protagonist.
Old man!
Old man, what is
Shaving Thatcher.
37!
Oh, man, good eye.
You could just say Dennis.
Why did your name was Dennis?
You didn't bother to ask, how did you?
Sorry about the old man thing.
Off topic, let's go.
Little bit. In the back.
Bounty hunter from Mars.
With biker mice.
Yes.
I have not heard Biker Mice from Mars referenced in the longest time. I feel like I got whiplash from that flashback.
You're welcome.
An old man, of course. Who's also bounty hunter?
Who's the old man, the actor who played the old man in The Golden Compass?
Oh.
And plays old man in everything. He was also in Roadhouse.
Patrick
Swayze?
Oh, crazy
It was
Swayze.
Sam something, right?
Elliot.
Sam Elliott, thank you very much.
High five.
Write Sam Elliott down. 'Cause he's my guy. I've always wondered, I'm sorry about that. That wasn't even me.
No, but you apologize for it.
He's got that voice, right? It's like if he walked up and said, well, you know, things just need killing. Like, I'll kill it. Give me a gun, sir. Get your bare hands. Fine with my bare hands.
Did he have like a diesel powered leg?
Absolutely. If he was a pirate at one point, a
Oh!
pirate bounty hunter,
He's a former trained pirate, or he's a current trained pirate.
he got caught, lost a leg. I don't know.
Secret trained pirate.
And you know what? If it's gonna be trained pirate bounty hunters, there's got to be like one versus the other, and like they're both kind of like trying to.
Good lord, it's only been 14 minutes.
It's the pie hour.
Ooh, does anyone have pie?
Or you know what? Actually, you know what? If it's trains to the moon, why couldn't it be a race to finish the track?
So are the pirates stealing
The
train tracks? Or actual trains?
Are the
You
trains
can't get there
pirates?
first if we take your train.
It's Star Train Track Wars. Please forget. You know what? I get one every hour. I'll file that one away. That was my one. God, Ren really puns like that. That was my one.
Got like 11 p.m.
She keeps track of my bad puns. She's like, no.
It's like
It was
a
hardly a camel matter. Yes.
Better out than in.
If we're gonna go the whole route of bounty hunters versus pirates, they're both hunting the same thing. They're hunting the Bodhisattva monsters. If we're gonna do the Asian thing.
Well, see, here's the question. Do we want them to be hunting the monster to begin with, or are they doing something else and
Do
the
they have an
monster stops
opponent?
them?
Or is one of them the monster?
So would the monster be from the moon? Is that what they're doing?
You could do a Twilight Zone thing and you don't realize that they're the monster all along. I know, that's going back into stereotypes.
We're not M. Night.
Hey, Twilight Zone did it way before that.
Exactly.
I stopped myself.
And intentionally.
For the pirates, could they be like diesel punk harpies?
Diesel Punk Harpies. That was good.
It's a good band name.
That's also the name of my hard rock band, by the way. Diesel Punk. I can't even really sing her that, but I'm the drummer. I don't even know why I went there. Anyway, sorry. Once in a while, my brain wanders off, orders drinks I can't pay for. Yes.
Star Trek disturbs the next one. Placeholder Star Trek.
Right. Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense too. As they're going out, reaching out to lands that men have not yet fully gone. They get like in the hunting path, say, of a predatory creature.
There you go. Now instead of two pirates after each other, they got this third thing.
Nothing better than a monster to make perfect friends. I know I was trying to kill you a few seconds ago, but that's gonna eat us.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Absolutely. Enemy mine. Was that the old
getting Alien versus Predator flashbacks.
So and then, okay, we'll pause a moment there to point something out. Frequently, when you go through the whole story building process, you will find those moments where you see that's actually a lot like something else.
This is all old man candy.
What?
This is like the stuff you get out of like your grandpa's pocket. This is a good thing.
Old man candy is your title.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's your title.
There's your title.
Old man's
Old
candy.
man candy.
His name is Candy.
Or the train is candy.
His father was named Sam.
Well, we are talking about a brothel, right?
She walked into my life. Her name is Candy. It's funny, in 1920 Chicago. I'm just going on riffing on a chord.
That's right. See. Yeah.
Listen here, see, you don't know me and I don't know nobody.
Much better. Yeah.
So Molly,
You saved my.
get out of my face.
Possible main character situations, I'm gonna go for the washroom attendant.
Why is there a washroom attendant?
You know, seriously, we have to mention that. Because that's always been a question. It's like, I can actually dry my own hands off. Thank you.
Like, I'm gonna tip you to stare at me coming and going from the bathroom.
Like, I can't do this when you're in the room. If I pay you $1, will you leave? Always so awkward.
Tip him.
But at least he stands toward the sink, which is okay, because you can't cross that. That's what I'm talking about. You can't cross that zone. You can't, because if somebody else is there in that functional area, that's like there's an invisible, you can't go in there, and then you can't talk to somebody while they're in a different zone than you. Right?
No, stupidest rule
Thank
ever.
you.
Stupidest rule ever.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas girls are like, just come with me, let's go, we'll talk in the stall next to each other.
At the risk of slightly tangenting here, I gotta say that there's a couple elements like that I love that are so universal. The other one is the guy nod. I can go anywhere in the world and just totally. It is completely universal.
We don't need to say anything else after that.
And you know, and there's two. There's the neutral, positive, cool, and there's the no. It's totally like you go anywhere and everybody understands the guy nod. It's such a weird, like, it's genetic. I just wanted to say that because it's cool. So at this point,
I
okay,
can
so we
compliment a girl's shoes and we'll be best friends in like 5 minutes. So there.
this is also true.
Or get her number.
Need something stronger, Kiri?
There's vodka in there.
Okay, so now we have two characters. We've got the old man, we've got the
Diesel punk harpies and the washroom attendant.
well, the diesel punk harpies might. The diesel punk harpies is a gang.
The washroom attendant is a part of the diesel punk harpies.
Big like
Need some
steak.
excited. You what? Washroom attendant. You gotta have some excitement in your life.
Well, what exactly are they washing?
You just watch people pee all day. I mean, really.
Pretty exciting.
That would drive me to crime. I'm not gonna lie.
Or
Don't make moral judgments.
I'm not judging you. Or Sam is the washroom attendant, but he's also retired hitman. Or not hitman, kind of hitman.
Sam Elliott, you have fallen so far.
So retirement sucks. His Medicare is not really covering the bills. So
No, this is just getting depressing.
so
It's
now he's
true.
working in a washroom on a soon-to-be luxury train line between Earth and the Moon. Because you do.
He's coming out of retirement. Right?
Don't do the voice.
I can't not.
There's
It's a
our-
die-hard movie.
I know.
Let it happen.
I don't
It's
wanna-
amazing.
Actually, who was it? It was the Steven Seagal.
He was out.
It was the on the train,
It was.
but it was not in space. But also, we're going to go to monsters. So we're going to pause on the character, the hero character, well, anti-hero character. Let's talk about the monster a bit more. Or actually, see if we can identify, I don't know necessarily, I'm not completely associating the monster to the diesel punk car piece, although I really do love that name.
It's
What
like a Harry
monster are we
Potter
talking
band,
about?
really.
Well, they're kind of doing this arms race to build the track to the moon, it sounded like you were saying earlier. And in doing so, you would really probably tear nature apart, trying to build this track, and doing cause a lot of destruction. So they're the monsters because they're destroying.
Ooh, it's like Fern Gully. It's like this whole environmental realization.
Space Kraken.
There we go.
So, release it.
Space Kraken.
Release the space kraken.
All in favor?
Yay!
We have the Space Kraken.
It emerges from a black hole.
Yeah, from the dark side of the
That's how the black hole eats everything.
Well, here's
It's in fact actually from 1920 Chicago, and the black hole was a time bomb. Sorry, I just did a whole video on time travel theory, and
We
we're talking
can
about black
take a
holes.
page from both of these. I mean, we're talking about how mankind is the monster, that our desperation to leap off, we're boldly going where no one's really supposed to be going. It's not a train. And
Whose
our
idea was that? We
eagerness
should make fun of that.
we're gonna keep.
Why are we building a train?
Really,
Because
was a train the best idea we come up with? Yes, keep building.
Kill the right brothers.
So,
Like
yeah.
Oh.
tears.
Right? Tragic accident, just no monster.
I'm gonna come back to that one. Yeah, funny. No, not really. It's actually a cruel and really.
323.
Okay. What? Okay. So, if the eagerness to move to the moon is what causes this damage, or causes a rift, which actually creates a place for the Kraken to come from, what's the monster want?
Cookies.
Funyuns.
Onions.
I've already done brownies.
Okay, now we're back to the drug words.
Yeah.
The Kraken wants to be quiet to the noise neighbors as they
Well,
rock
we have
and roll
8
for
arms,
AM.
right?
Well, a Kraken isn't necessarily a squid or an ox.
The Kraken is the grumpy upstairs neighbor. I mean, really. That complains and hits on the ceiling when you
It should
literally
whine a lot.
rock music at 3 a.m.
Let's analyze this for a second. We're talking about monsters. What are your favorite monsters?
Godzilla.
Xenomorph.
Godzilla,
Kraken.
Xenomorph from which
Alien.
Alien, okay.
dragons.
Dragons.
Monsters of the mind.
Although an interesting point, dragons are only really monsters in American culture. In most other cultures, dragons are mythological heroes. They're noble creatures.
Well,
They're divine.
Western culture is a lot of dragons are the monsters, you know, St. George and the dragon, but you know, you go into Asian culture, you go into any other culture, and they're like
Oh, yeah. All
mythical
through Europe,
vanilla.
dragons aren't bad things. Dragons are the ultimate symbol of nature. I do kind of like the idea of maybe even taking a look at this and having them perceive this initially as a monster, but then the flip is realizing, of course, that it's their fault in the first place, and it's really just a symbol of without being too preachy. It's just being like nature coming out and going, stop that.
Well, then the Kraken lives in the center of the moon.
It's like that Super Friends episode with the moon patches.
Oh, baby kraken. Baby space kraken.
Then the mama Kraken comes out of the black hole to protect her baby.
Yeah, they're like, this whole time they're like, fight the monster, fight the monster. Oh yeah, this is just her kid.
We're fucked.
Now's encounter at Farpoint.
There is a rift within the electromagnetic field of the Earth when they're tunneling through with the train tracks. And it needs to close that rift because it is it's damaging its environment out beyond the Earth.
So so we like the idea of a monster not necessarily being sentient, not being evil, but being more reactionary.
Yeah.
Or you've
So it's protecting its
more you
Yeah.
have intruded
Misunderstood.
upon this, or you are threatening my own family, my pack, my herd, my nest,
My eggs.
and they're my egg. Therefore, I must defend it.
Yeah, we do.
So-
I kind of feel like we're talking about geese at this point.
Space geese.
They are.
Space.
But usually because you are in somewhat close proximity to where the heck they've hidden their eggs. I'm like, dude, I didn't even know, I'm sorry.
Or the space alligator.
About when we're doing the storyboard thing that sounds like a bunch of other things, and we kind of tangented it off and bring it back.
Yeah. So we're still looking at where we're flowing at this point is we're looking at a transport. We're thinking train, but sci-fi is diesel pump, so it could be something emblematic and a representative of a train, but not. Because of course, for one thing, you can't just attach a trade line to the Earth to the Moon because they're kind of this little spinny thing.
Maybe that's what causes the damage.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. They have to do something to overcome the current laws of physics known at that time. And as man is so wonderful to do is, well, let's just do it and see what happens as a result, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
Can that be a line in the book? Let's just do it. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Famous last words. Pretty sure the
Famous-
Titanic had that as well.
What?
Donner party.
Don?
Oh, geez. Donner, party of 3, 2, 1. Right this way, sir. Honey, guess what's coming to dinner?
Every once in a while, there'll be that comment.
Wait, did you say Dahmer or Donner? Because there's a difference.
Not a big one.
Not a huge one.
It was a party of one. That was too soon. I'm establishing the level. Okay, so yes. So people can eat each other, but not in this century. Gotcha.
Well, we on the fair point, who here is a fan of Hannibal? Well, there's your reason right there.
Okay, noted.
What if our universe is toxic to the creature's universe? So when we break into it,
It's causing damage.
yeah.
What if the propulsion system for whatever it is that we're creating is causing some kind of like radioactive interference with the Kraken's environment, and so it's like
Or it's noisy.
Nuclear thrust is like an immune response.
Nuclear space tube.
Nuclear Kraken. That's my punk band.
Because the physics are so spinning Earth and spinning Moon, the rotations and stuff, instead of that, you have tracks that actually go into portals on each side, and the portals can be the problem.
And it was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success.
How can we get the portal on the moon, though? Do we just like fire it up there when it's a whole moon?
Well, if we had the gun, we could do that.
Yeah,
Sure,
if you
go
have a
far.
big enough gun.
Ask Wheatley.
If you have a big enough gun, it's just you just need a good bullet. Yeah, you just have a big enough gun. You just need a good bullet.
That's
A
when
rail
they
gun.
figure out how to kill the Kraken.
Well, that
I
could
know.
put the track
What is
between the
that?
two portals in another dimension.
Okay.
Built the
Well,
Kraken.
okay.
Yeah, why
Where the
Well,
monsters are.
Let the Kraken.
without going too much into detail, because obviously when we write this story, we'd like you to be surprised. Like, I already know what's gonna happen.
Quite a few.
Now it's a Michael Bay movie.
There goes the whole
Did you ever read any of the Anne McCaffrey books about her, right?
Yes.
The how the dragons travel
Yep.
through, like, so like that, then we could do that with the train tracks. Kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Well,
Go
we
with portals.
so we've kind of talked about this. We'll play with the technology and kind of figure out a good through line for it, a good way. Do you think that we should have the technology solve the problem of the monster? Or should abandoning the technology solve the problem of the monster?
Abandon the railway.
tech.
So the only solution to stop the monster is to stop our goal for expansion.
Which brings up the question of who is funding this train project to the moon?
Someone's gunning for him.
It was a new Turtles trailer, wasn't it?
Who decides April O'Neil should be played by Megan Fox? I'm just saying.
It's a budget thing.
I do have a question.
You can make it.
One giant Kraken or thousands of little Krakens? Hundreds.
Baby.
Popcorn
Krakens.
One Kraken-sized horse or one horse-sized Kraken. The ducks and the court.
The downside is I totally know where her brain is going. I'm like, I just gotta stop her before.
So then you can bring in a pantry and thousands of little guys.
And then you can cook them.
Popcorn Kraken.
See, it's the monster, but everybody already loves it. Now it's too soon.
Maybe it's a parasite sort of thing. Like it's a tiny little thing that's like
Like a
hooking onto
scared
it.
Nano Kraken?
I was gonna kind of also go more with like the Minox and in Star Wars. Yeah.
And they're like the juvenile version.
Chewing on the power cables. Come on, Chewie.
And
I
then
go
Mama.
right into that. I just can't. It's a spin-off. When we do our
Tastes like
recipe
chicken?
book, there will be fried.
Tastes like chicken.
Really elastic chicken.
You're a bad man who needs to stay on topic.
If you use a really big gun route, what if they missed?
They meant to shoot the moon.
They were former stormtroopers.
And by the way, speaking of that, it's not stormtroopers being bad. They just have helmets with really small visors. I mean, look through you have no
Blind
peripheral
spot.
vision. It's pretty much this. It's not their fault.
They're just trying to help the rebellion because they didn't agree with the Order 66.
You know, noted.
Brain farted. Sorry.
Sweet. Air it out. Okay.
It's a dystopian finale where we go ahead and kill the Kraken anyway. Instead of abandoning the technology and it saves and everything's nice, the major corporation, major brothel corporation, whatever, decide it's okay, let's go ahead and destroy. And then we discover what else has
Screw
been
wildlife.
destroyed out there.
And then the body of the Kraken comes down and kills itself.
Or you have a sequel, you know.
Kill us all.
The Kraken's Revenge.
And then we all die. The end.
Ride the Kraken.
Oh, and by the way, this happened 80 years ago, so everything happened since then.
Well, yeah, but in my evil corporation voice.
I'm just,
Duh.
like, I think your book is supposed to be family friendly.
I'm sorry, what?
Did you hear the premise for God's brownies?
They're not
It's okay to screw your body over, but the environment, that's going too far.
I'll be honest, they are a broad range of appropriate audiences, so yeah.
Appropriate's a funny word, really.
Well, I'm thinking with the giant gun, like it fails, and now everyone's like, we need to set a bounty, hence the pirates are involved, hence the bounty hunters involved, and the PTA, student teacher meeting, realized we need the money, and so they're doing their own thing. So you have a three-way race to take out, four-way, sorry, we forgot the heartbeat.
Well,
We have the heartbeat, so it's four-way race.
I got one thing I definitely want to play off of here. If we set the entire premise of this technology as starting with a gun, a really big gun, from the very beginning of this, it's very American. America. It's from a literary perspective, it is the obvious way we would kill the Kraken. So obviously it's not going to work. It has to go horribly wrong. Because that makes it fun.
Well, if it's a portal gun. Wouldn't it just move?
The one thing I know about guns, the
Possibly
bigger
right
the
on the
gun,
earth?
the bigger the recoil.
The recoil, absolutely.
Oh. What was that?
The bigger the
Recoil.
gun, the bigger the recoil.
Yes. So in order to
Unless it's a laser gun. I don't know why there's recoil to laser guns. That really doesn't make a lot of sense.
But this is 1920s.
But actually,
1920s lasers are different.
Yeah.
They're heavier.
Your mom's lasers are different. What?
my mom.
She crossed about Alan's.
No,
That's way harsh.
That was harsh.
That actually makes a really good point too. Physics. Even though this is technically kind of a sci-fi, it's a sci-fi western. We do have
It's a
to.
pirate adventure.
Pirate.
Western doesn't enter in it.
Okay.
1920 Chicago, train pirates.
It was his hat. His hat from you. Okay. So we do have to still follow physical laws. We're looking at 1920s before they had the same breadth of science comprehension that we have now. It's before Einstein, really. So we have a whole different understanding of physics from 100 years ago that we have now. So just fire something at the monster, take it out, but sir, the recoil. Damn the recoil! and then.
Should the Earth on its axis?
Well, I like something that you may not have heard that she was talking about how we're looking at like a portal type technology where it's creating a rift that they can fire the train through. What if it hits the moon and we lose the moon?
Oh. And then gravity is so screwed.
We're so boned.
Good news, sir.
No more tides.
No more time. The downside is that everything's flooding.
Good news is though we may have hit the Kraken. The bad news is Earth has probably a few days at most. Whoopsies, sorry.
So that rumble will come in handy.
Okay, so I think this is actually a good point to pause at in this story, because I know we have a bunch of other ideas. I think we've actually got a really good foundation for a story, which we did in about 25 minutes. Do we want to flesh out more details, or do we want to toss together something else really quick?
Toss together something else.
Let's try another one. Let's try it again.
Are you gonna make both of us write one of these?
I don't know. What we'll do is we'll take these ideas first to the rest of
All right, bring it on.
of the press, and we'll see which idea sounds best, and we'll work
You're
with it.
too perky, I don't trust you. No, you're fine.
So let's start again. Let's start with the subgenre of our monster story.
Historical fiction.
Ooh.
Well,
Roman historical fiction.
Roman historical. Thank you. The Roman Empire.
Time
They haven't been as
Now
good
you're
enough.
talking about my jam.
Time travel.
Time travel.
Time traveling butts, got it.
How do you do math?
Robot gladiators.
I love how we've actually gotten into like Mad Libs. Now, we just go butts, poop, Steve because he's in the room too.
That's pretend. Wow. Okay.
We are descending into chaos.
We were born in chaos.
All right. Magic realism.
Oh.
No one's done romance yet. This is a monster.
What is not
Because
romantic
Kate
about
Beckinsale is
this?
not in the room, so why bother?
I second that.
What's not
Which
romantic
is,
about
point
Roman
of fact,
historical
I had no
fiction
idea what to do with
time
I read
I'm
the
talking
song.
about that right there.
Gladiators are totally rock stars, man.
If we're,
Dude, they had fandom. You know they did.
if they're not eaten by lions.
Well, they still have fandom. And then the lions have fandom.
I totally ship Caesar with.
One at a time.
If we're doing a Roman horror, following some horror tropes, I want to see like a legionnaire commander who's like incredulous about a monster. Like those kids don't know what they're talking about. I want to see that.
Looking at believers, non-believers, which is good for the Roman times. There's a lot of
They're at
good-
the
there's a lot of
age
good
when
things
they're
for
not
that.
believing.
Yeah. Which is weird, since they have so many gods, but they really don't believe them. They just kind of say, hey, it's Thursday, let's go to the sanitarium or throw up again. Yeah. It's more like just holidays. Hey, no.
Public bath hours.
Hey, no, it's.
Nope, had a brothel, let's do it.
Yeah, let's draw some.
Look, over there, a subject change.
Legionnaire commander does not believe. What kind of monster do we like?
Living gargoyles.
Werewolves.
We're lions. Gorgons.
We're squirrels.
So they're wolves, but at the moon they turn into gorgons, or they're what?
Internet trolls.
What is that?
Internet trolls.
An internet troll accidentally time travels back
Only
to the Roman
2000
I
times.
think that's right to correct all the bad history he sees
There's
around.
time travel involved.
You know what? I'll go with trolls.
Like Billy Goat.
They have to keep
Or
saying,
mountain
starting
trolls.
sentences with actually.
Thought you ought to know.
The entire thing done in the style of one of Homer's epics.
Simpson?
Shut up! Let me just. I can't do Homer Simpson's voice.
That's where my impression is.
I can kind of do Bart a little bit. Well, man.
What if we did the whole Roman thing in the style of a film noir?
I was mentally cross-eyed there. That was. I got like right in Homer's. Where's that bit?
Oh! Like.
lot of
I
time to
mean,
go
40
back to
minutes
Roman.
without cursing.
Yeah, that was several records.
It doesn't? Yes. I feel like Miss Pettigrew lives for a day.
Alright, so. I'm gonna live off that for a month. Okay.
To be
I like
fair.
it actually. That's a great that's a great literary challenge for one of us.
But we, okay.
Yep. Okay,
No, have to finish before we do this.
I know.
If we have someone who doesn't believe in the monster, if you had some kind of a shape changer, it'd be really hard for them to convince them because, you know, 1 minute it's like a wolf monster thing, and the next it's a person just walking around. So how
Maybe the monster looks like another gladiator.
Yeah, sure.
He would be awesome.
Maybe the gladiators are monsters.
Or delusions.
The Legionnaire is the only one who's not.
Okay.
This is gonna be like, this is the real reason why the Spartan army was unbeatable. I get that Spartans are Greeks, not Romans, but I'm just working here.
Luchadores.
Tiny Mexican werewolf.
Here's another tangent as well. Speaking of watching movies through different perspectives, I would go back and watch Russell Crowe again and go, what if they were all monsters?
I thought that was gonna be a longer story. So.
Go back and watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I'm gonna be brief, but this time, imagine that Ferris Bueller is a construct of Cameron's mind. A la
Fight Club. Also, if you haven't seen Fight Club, no spoilers.
Yeah, but go back and
He's not. That's not his. I mean, you are.
Enjoy the movie. Pretend that Cameron has this like instability. It's so much fun. All right, so we have, in the style of Homer's epic, we have I can't read that, a legionary commander who does not believe in monsters, but his entire gladiator force, the entire group of gladiators are in fact monsters, butchering everything that gets thrown into the ring.
Maybe he can't see them as monsters, whereas when he looks at them, he sees just the gladiators, but when everybody else looks at them, they're just like, monsters!
It could be worse. Maybe he chooses not to see them as monsters.
Now
He's Scully.
Imagine you ruling over this part of the Colosseum. You're sending people effectively to their death on a daily basis for the entertainment and love of the crowd. You send them in to be killed, to be slaughtered for entertainment purposes only. How do you live with it?
I think it's awesome.
Well, I'm not right. Does he not know, like, as in they're actual monsters, not like in a mental way, but they're actual monsters, and that's why they're being sent to fight each other for entertainment?
I'm
And
gonna
he's
throw-
like, they're
I'm
my
gonna-
children.
I'm going to throw it down one step further, that he doesn't realize they're monsters until he decides they're monsters.
Alright, psychological man.
It's a nice way to look at the evil that men do. How do we rationalize it? How do we justify it?
Now we're bringing it back to Caesar.
Maybe a bit.
The evil that men do live after them. Great Caesar quote.
Well, there's a good tie-in.
Well, rather, great Shakespeare quote from Julius Caesar.
I think we can borrow it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll mind.
If Will
It's
shows
like-
up and says, give me my line back, yes, Mr. Shakespeare. And by the way, you look really good for a dead man.
Also, hey, did you know a lot of people don't think you actually existed? Funny story.
He existed, he just didn't read the plays, according to them.
If Shakespeare comes back as an undead minion of the universe and demands that you give him back his quote, he gets everything he wants, including rights to his stories.
What
And all
if
movies
the
are made.
Legionnaire commander, what if his assistant was sort of a William Shakespeare-esque character who just time travels and writes down stories?
At some point, you're going to have to create the individual who did observe everything, unless it's all going to be from the perspective of the Legionnaire commander. There has to be that one person who does see.
Or David Wenham, really.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome.
Alright. Okay, we are actually at the end of our time. But we're going to, shall we do rock, paper, scissors, see which one we choose? Story?
So we're doing both? Is that
I
what's
don't
going
know.
on?
We'll flesh it out and we'll pitch it.
Alright, whose is, like, is, when I
You
get
don't
to
want to let
choose?
the audience
We don't get to
decide
choose.
who's going to write it?
Nope, sorry.
Yeah.
You got to choose everything
Hang
else.
on. Trying to see what kind of person you are.
You have no idea. Okay.
Wait, Rob.
One,
Boom,
one,
two,
two,
three,
and
shoot.
two. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, Okay.
No.
Hang on.
1, 2, and reveal.
Okay. Throws off my whole rhythm.
Rock, paper, scissors.
No, but then like that's why you go 1, 2, 3 shoot.
Okay, fine.
I didn't realize it was.
You know what,
I'm just saying, you go
Hey.
through all of them, otherwise it then
Don't
subconsciously
criticize
tells that
our-
person you should pick
our
scissors
process.
because you're saying it while you.
They're judging our process. Okay, 1, 2,
I
3.
judge our process.
You did all the time. 1, 2, 3, and shoot.
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm messing with us now. 1, 2, 3, rock.
Sore winner.
All right. So pick which one you want. Do you want the trained move, or you want?
No, I totally want the Roman historical thing.
All right.
You can
trained
totally
it
deal with space Kraken.
My name is Kraken, but you can call me Space Kraken. Awesome.
You guys are awesome. We actually do have non-anthology books as well, but we're going to head back to our booth because I believe
Where's our booth,
Cummins.
Kiri?
It's JJ21, which basically means you go through one exhibition hall, and the next exhibition hall, and then down the escalators to that exhibition hall. It's a very big place.
Over in the convention. No,
TWCC, the conference center.
Conference Center. Yes.
There's so many names for
Thank
it.
you very much. Give yourselves a hand.
If you follow us on Twitter and whatnot, we'll let you know.
Or on Facebook, or go to our
When it
website.
comes out,
It's
and then-
www.talariapress.com.
May I have everybody exit out this back door, please? Thank you.
I'm like, where's Sophie? Sophie went to the cosplay thing. Oh, okay. Let's do that. Back and it was.